Welcome, welcome, and welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us live, our first Fireside Chat of the year, People 2021. We are delighted to see you here. My name is Nayara Tenin. I am Head of Marketing at Pci, and today I'll be doing some introductions to the webinar. So just before we get started, a few things that are important to mention. The audience is muted, so no one can hear you. However, this doesn't mean that we want to hear from you. You just need to use the Q&A on the bottom of your screen. If you don't have time to take notes, don't worry. We are also going to send you the video recording in 24 hours. I also want to suggest you to stay until the end, as we have some exceptional offers. We have 1 hour of IT consultation from Team Scale, which is valued at $520 Australian, and 30% of discount on the first 2 months of invoice from talent. So if you're thinking about outsourcing, stay here and don't miss out these opportunities. And if this is not enough, if you're based in Sydney, we are also giving a 5-day free pass on Motive co-working. I personally think this deal sounds pretty good, and I hope can express our gratitude to have you here. That's enough from me, and to continue our chat, I want to call Anthony Bowers from Talent to introduce himself and our great speakers for this morning. It's over to you, Anthony.
Are you there, Anthony?
Anthony, I think you are on mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. So just wanted to say, thanks to everyone that has joined us today, and thanks to all of the panelists. We've got an absolutely fantastic lineup. My background is that I've spent the last 20 years in Asia, recently relocated back to Sydney. I run a BPO company in Cebu, Philippines, and we've been helping companies around the world with their back office support, things like customer support and graphic design and accounting and everything else in between. So really looking forward to the chat today, where we're going to be talking about all things remote working and shared service and customer support, and how does it all work, and what a year it's been last year, and how we're going to have a better year in 2021. So that's me. And I think we'll hear from Michael.
Yeah, hi, I'm Michael. I work for a company called TeamScale. I'm the managing director. We have a company that works with small or growing companies and helps them understand their technology and fit that technology into their business plans for their roadmaps. We've been in business over 9 years now. We are tech agnostic, so we don't have a particular solution. We try to find the best solutions for the customer. And most of our work is spent in cloud-based solutions. We've got a fantastic 3 panelists on the call today. Alex Huntley, who is the head of customer experience from Booktopia. Michael Mcculloch, who's the managing director for KMC Group, and Elena Palacios, from the president and CEO of Lexmark Cebu. Alex, do you want to give us a little bit of a introduction from yourself?
Thank you, Michael. So Alex Huntley, I'm the head of customer experience at Booktopia. We're one of Australia's leading booksellers. We're a pure play bookseller, pure play online. I've got a couple of decades of having a lot of fun running customer service operations on both sides of the outsourcing fence, and have been at Booktopia for the last 7 years, where as an organization, we've had really, really rapid growth. So that's been a really exciting wave to surf. And we recently listed on the Australian Stock Exchange and are poised for even more development. Fun to be on the call. Thanks.
Great. Nice to hear from you, Alex. And Michael Mcculloch from KMC Group, do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction?
Yeah, Michael McCulloch here. I got sent to the Philippines exactly 14 years ago, about a week or two ago, by a software development company. Found myself into getting into real estate projects and everything from micro real estate all the way to large scale commercial developments. So kind of big spectrum that the group works with, and excited to talk to you guys today.
Thanks, Michael. And Eleanor, do you want to give us a small introduction on what you're doing for Lexmark and where you fit in? Eleanor, I think you're on mute at the moment. Yeah, you're very quiet though.
So,
That's better. Oh, yep.
that's good. Thank you. I have been in the Philippines for the last 5 years. I arrived there in January 2016 to run the shared service center for Lexmark. I think that Lexmark doesn't need introduction. It's one of the big companies on the printing business, moving to the new Internet of Things now. We are evolving in solutions and things like that. But I have been there managing we have a captive shared service center. I have been there since 2016, and we run all the back office for the company. We have 1,300 employees there, and we run almost all the process that is backup for the business.
Fantastic. So I'm going to hand over to Anthony, who is going to drive the main discussion for today. Just so everyone knows, this is, I guess, a freestyle fireside chat where we don't have any plans in terms of what structure we're going to follow, but the idea is to have a free and open discussion. And if you have any questions, there is a Q&A box down the bottom in Zoom. So please put those questions into that box and the panelists can answer them. Over to you, Anthony.
Yeah, awesome. And this time unmuted. It's just the world we live in with mutes and unmutes, and we've got to roll with it. So look, I'm really interested. I think, Elena, if we could start with you, I'd love to talk a bit about the transition of Lexmark, because I knew Lexmark as a sort of a manufacturing entity in the Philippines. How did the decision get made to move from a manufacturing center to a shared services center? What was that like for you? And what was it like for Lexmark, et cetera? If you give us a bit of background on that.
We have been in the Philippines for the last 20 years as a research and development. And before that, almost 25 years ago, we started a manufacturing plant. We were producing ink there. We were in the ink business. Wow. But many years ago, we closed that. We went out of that business, and we only moving with the laser. But the shared services start in 2006. It's going to be 15 years since we decide to move to the Philippines, and we decide Philippines because we were already there. We were a legal entity there, so it was easier for us to start research and development 20 years ago, and then 15 years ago in Q4 we will be celebrating our 15th anniversary as a captive shared service center. And the decision initially was basically cost reduction. But we have been evolving, and right now we are part of an organization called GBS, Global Business Services. And that includes different shared service centers. We have a shared service center in the Philippines, in Cebu, and we have another one in Budapest, and we have another one in Montevideo, Uruguay.
Yeah. No, well, okay. Controversial thing here. I'm going to throw it out to you. People talk about cultural differences a lot when dealing with, and this is a question that I'm open to the whole panel as well. People often talk about cultural differences as being a difficulty when trying to set up a BPO or a shared service center or any team in the Philippines. I sometimes think that is over accentuated to hide maybe other problems. What are your thoughts there? Are there real cultural differences? Have you run into any, and how did you deal with them?
I think that at the beginning there was a culture shock, but I think that the Filipinos are very flexible, and they really adopt the Lexmark culture very, very soon. And every country, have a different culture, but that's personal culture, family culture. But as a business culture, we have the Lexmark culture, and that's the one that we practice. Open door, straight talk, customer oriented. People development is key. So everybody has the same culture, and we are working right now. We are working in a culture shift. We are trying to be more flexible. We are trying to be more innovative, more creative.
Yep.
We are trying to take more risk, and that's the type of culture that we talk about.
Yeah,
and I think that the Filipinos are very easy to adapt to that culture.
they're quite flexible there, and absolutely. So I think a lot of the times we forget about that there are business cultures as well. And that business culture needs to, I guess, potentially feed both ways. But before we look back on that, to the other panelists, Michael, what it's been like for the 14 years that you've been running your company?
Yeah, well, we've been in a few countries now, so including India, the Philippines, and Vietnam, where I've found that the cultural differences are a little bit over exaggerated when it comes to those sorts of, as Elena said, there's business and personal culture, and a lot of the time it's more about, do you get on with the people, and can you understand them in terms of what they're trying to achieve and helping them get through that. We've found some cultural differences that benefit a lot of what we're doing. So in our Vietnam team, everyone's very creative and thinking outside the box, whereas in the Philippines, you've got a lot of really great process-driven companies that are rely a lot on how those people are able to process things and make a much better environment for themselves.
Awesome. Thank you. And Michael Mcculloch this time as well.
Sure, I wasn't sure if that was for me.
Yeah, the two Michaels, man. It's a bit difficult, isn't it?
No worries. Yeah, you can call me by my last name.
Okay, done.
So anyway, I think Elena said it best. People development. When you develop people, particularly in the Philippines, you can get them to climb any mountain and tackle any complex task. And I think that's what's really exciting about the team that we've been able to assemble at KMC, is who's been with me for almost since the beginning of starting the business. So, some people have been with me 9 years, 10 years, and that's pretty long tenure.
Yeah.
I think any company in any country, and probably more so in a super fast growing economy like the Philippines or in Asia in general.
Yeah, totally. And that's been my experience as well. And we might go back to that in a minute. But I'm very interested in how the roles in the Philippines potentially have morphed and changed as people like yourself and Eleanor have been there for many years, that it can start at a certain level, but then those people have career paths and they move up that career ladder. And, how does that affect them and the way people perceive the Philippines, et cetera, as a source of labor. But before we get there, Alex, and there's no other Alex to be confused.
It's me. Look, just echoing some of the other comments, but I think for us, it's clear that what you put into it is what you can get or take out of it. And the willingness of an organization to invest in their outsourced people and treat them as people and as part of your organization will reap really solid benefits. So I think if you take that kind of approach, then there's a lot of positives there. One thing I will say about the Philippine culture versus the Australian business culture is that we had to work really hard on creating a space for empowerment. I think it's one thing to say that we're empowering our people, and we did, and the processes were there, but we found that the Philippine BPO business culture was a little more conservative and much more risk averse than the equivalent team members in Australia. And so empowerment was providing a lot of support to them for making those decisions on their own, and not fearing any kind of repercussions for that. So we had to create a really solid framework to allow them that kind of empowerment.
Yeah, and it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you're going up against decades of an attitude that might be very different, that they're looking at cogs in a machine, just do a process and that's how it's done, which is very powerful in its own way. But it
gets better over time, as Michael, as for Mcculloch's situation, we've got some long-term employees that have been with us from the beginning, and they're the root of that culture as well.
Yeah, wow. Absolutely.
Hey, awesome. So just to we're going to do some polls during this webinar, and I'd like to push out the first poll, which is around what you think the main resistance to outsourcing is. So I'd encourage all of the attendees. We've got 35 on at the moment, which is fantastic. To vote on this poll and let us know what you think. The poll's out there. We'll give you maybe a minute, Anthony.
Yeah, that is fine.
Yeah, cool. Please feel free to vote on that poll, and it'd be interesting to see what people think.
Is that a minute? No.
No, we've got about 20 seconds
20
left.
seconds, okay.
Yeah.
We can see who the analytical one is in the pair. Technology can be confusing for me.
I'm lucky. There's a timer at the top of the screen, so.
Okay, good.
Okay, 5 seconds left, and we're pretty much fully there. And it looks like the number one reason from this team is the skill level of offshore staff.
Okay.
The second one is that they're not local staff, and various, language barrier, cultural barrier. They're probably the third. Sorry. So your skill levels are not local. Probably the big ones there. Okay, I'm going to end
If
that.
I can make a comment around that just real quickly. One of the leading video conferencing companies chose Manila to be their APAC HQ. And it was really the depth of skill sets that they could hire. Right. And they've been in the market for only a year, and their team's well over 500 employees, running various.
I think it's a lack of information.
Go ahead, Elena.
I think it's lack of information. People don't know. They don't know that how talent is the people in other countries. Everybody thinks that my country is the best. We are the best. We know everything. But I think that you will be surprised. At least people with the Philippines will be surprised how much talent we have there, and how good they are, and how flexible they are to adapt to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to just jump in there, because it's a real. You both hit on a very a touch point for me. Mcculloch, I feel very uncomfortable calling you that, but I'll just do it for this webinar. So Mcculloch and Elena and Michael, it's and Alex, it's an amazing thing. Like the talent that is available in the Philippines, and really, you're right, around the world is exceptional, but people don't really know about it, or they come in with a different sort of point of view or a bias indeed. Your experience, Elena, now that you've been there, was it 4 years or 5 years? 5. So in the 5 years, have you seen growth in your team? Are they moving into different areas with a more demanding skill set, maybe in a more managerial role? And I'm talking as in feeding into Lexmark internationally as a shared service provider. What's your experience been there?
Yes, and we moved from the transactional work that we started 15 years ago to a knowledge-based work, adding value work. But we are also a source for other companies. Sometimes people really like how well trained our people are, and we have to fight very hard not to get the competition to get our people. And I think that internally they move a lot. And we also have a development program for managerial positions. They start as an analyst, individual contributors, and they move. More than 40% of the positions are backfilled internally. It's because the people move internally. Yeah. And now with we have a process that is called data to value. We have people with very, very high skills there in the analytics side. And I have seen the evolution in the 5 years from the transactional work to the knowledge-based and value-add work.
That's awesome. Alex, how about yourself with your team?
We haven't had so much internal movement because we've been a very small operation. So we literally started with a Keystone employee and built from that. So for us, it's been a process of scaling. We've just now reached a point where we're able to start offering some career pathways for the team members there, and that's starting to pay some dividends too, because they're really invested. They're very excited, and they're embracing those opportunities, which is really fantastic.
Yeah, cool. And Mcculloch, I was very fascinated to hear about your point about that video company moving in and having 500 staff, and there wasn't any sort of transition. It was that they identified that there was a very high skill set in the Philippines in a certain area, and went in there and grown that team to 500. And I think that just automatically dispels this notion that it's only an area where you can get low value tasks done, repetitive tasks done, and stuff like that. I think it's the exact opposite. I think you can really find a huge pool of highly talented, highly skilled people, and maybe it's up to the Philippines and people like us to spread that word a bit more, right?
I might just jump in and add a little bit more that we actually not just having a customer service operation, but we have a number of different functions that we've taken up to Philippines over time. We have people who work on web content, graphic design. We've got data analysts and people who work on maintaining our back end operations and content creation. So it's a whole bunch of different roles. So it's really crucial to our operation in a variety of ways. So it's not just the skill level there, but the variety of skills available is really interesting. Yeah.
Okay, that's fascinating. On something completely different, and Michael, jump in if you've got something that you'd like to talk about or something. But just while I was in my mind, I often hear that your proper customer support, and this one's for you, Alex. Proper customer support can't be done by offshore staff.
Yeah, that was something I was going to ask as well. It's really one of the things we find is a lot of people give us, especially when you say that you're outsourcing somewhere, they sort of like, oh no, I'm not going to get put through to India or the Philippines, am I? But I'd love to hear from you, Alex, because you're good at this. But my understanding is that it works fine. So
Yeah, I think part of the problem there is that the big wave of outsourcing out of Australia was led by the telcos earlier on 10, 15 years ago. And they did such a bad job of it that they conditioned the Australian population to really resent speaking to anything that didn't sound Australian to their ears. And so that perception lingers amongst the business community as well. And everyone's got their own experiences. And I think that flavors sometimes a bit negative. But, look, and at the same time, though, I've got a bit of a foot in both camps here. So we've got half of our operations in Philippines and half of it in Australia. Right. There are things that make sense for us to do here because of having a team locally connected into our physical operation makes a lot of sense. And the flexibility that the Philippine team gives us for breadth of coverage and the skill set and being able to scale our operations was really, really fantastic. So we still have a presence in both places. It wasn't purely a cost driving exercise for us. It was about scaling our operations. And so it made sense to do it in that way. But there's a lot of negativity in the Australian business community about it. And I think it's from that source.
I mean, I don't think a lot of companies come over to the Philippines to entirely replace teams, but to augment teams and to augment certain processes so they can hire, some higher value add employees back home. So, I mean, that's been our experience. Many of our clients grew both in the US and grew their back office teams in the Philippines. So it wasn't, direct replacements. They just, certain skill sets need to be done onshore, and certain skill sets could be done off, remotely.
Yeah, agree. One of the other things that I'm interested to know about is when people are working remotely, what is data security like for them? I'm going to run a poll right now, which is I'll give another minute for them to run this poll, and I'll talk during that poll as well. So for me, the data security can be both risky, or managing the risk versus implementing stuff to manage that risk for them. And what we're finding is a lot of people are just ignoring that there is a risk, and that worries me, because you can see that some companies are going to outsourcing providers who are not necessarily understanding web security and data security fully, and therefore they're having to put a lot of effort into making sure that their remote workers can deliver on that security and keep their customers' data secure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating one, because I get that all the time, and I'd love to hear from all the panelists about it. I walk into businesses in Sydney, and you've got the password on a sticky note, people putting the USBs in, no security whatsoever. And then as soon as they talk about someone overseas, suddenly, it's got to be NASA level or NSA level stuff. Because I think there has to be an overall culture of data security across the whole company. But yeah, I'd love to hear that. Mr. Mcculloch, what's your experience been there with your clients?
I mean, we worked with a lot of enterprise organizations, so data security was really important to them, thus really important to us. We got our ISO 7001 3 or 4 years ago, and we've maintained that. And again, we work to kind of the strictest standards that our clients ask for.
Yeah.
The creative, they can almost entirely operate in a browser with a basic, internet connection anywhere in the world.
Yep.
And in the cloud with, limited security. Some of our healthcare, U.S. healthcare clients require them to be on premise.
Okay.
Even today, they're still, utilizing our offices. Our offices have never shut down. They've been open 24/7 for well over a year. And, there'd be very, higher controls in place, firewalls and direct point-to-points between data centers in the US and our offices. For those who couldn't come in, we helped them set up VPNs at home. And yeah, like you're saying, some of the clients, all USB ports are disabled, and there's some group policies that restrict other software. So it's scale, like what level of security do you need and want, and we can help them implement that.
Done. Eleanor, what was that like for Lexmark and the integration of the Philippines team to Lexmark International?
Talking about security, how important that is, and I think that Lexmark we're in a very good position. We work with this Pci report. Are you familiar with the Pci report? Okay, that's an application that automatically check or run across many organizations, and depending on your security level, we get a very high one. So we are doing okay. All our critical data we migrated to the cloud to ensure that we have high security, and also we have security operations centers. We have a security operations center in Lexington, and we have one security operation in Cebu that is monitoring all our operations 24 hours a day. We are very strict with the data security, data privacy policy under the GDPR, and for Europe and US, and also the Data Privacy Act for the Philippines. We also have customers. We have the National Bank of Australia, for example, is one of our customers, and Deutsche Bank. They are very, very picky with that security. So to the people that we hire to handle the customer support for them, they do background check, and those people, and we are not allowed to touch those people. If we have to change somebody, it have to be approved by the customer.
Right. Yeah.
We cannot do that. So the global and local data privacy officers, they has been registered for 2 years now.
Right. Okay.
Private. We have a privacy management program that is continually in execution. So data privacy for us is really a critical topic.
Yeah. Awesome. It sounds like you're totally on top of it and always improving, which I think you have to be with data security and the bad actors out there that are trying to manipulate that. I mean, Alex, what about yourself, or Michael, I should say, if you sound like you want to jump in?
No, Alex, I'd like to hear from what's happening there as well.
All the tools on the infrastructure is there to be able to be as secure as you need to be, and I think the rest of it comes back to your operating policies more than anything else. But you can also do lots of simple things. So PCI compliance is an important one for us, but you can mitigate that risk really easily. We don't want anybody putting credit card details in an email or in a live chat. So we've actually made it. We've just set our tools so that you can't actually use a credit card in our systems if you're based outside of a certain location. So, we've minimized the risk and the possibility that, inadvertent disclosures could happen just by doing a simple thing like that. So I think if you've got a lot of common sense and you've got good infrastructure, we do the VPNs, we own all the machines so that everything is secured. Even working from home, we still have a very tight network, both here and in Philippines.
Yeah, and I think that what you said is a really interesting point in that, you can do things that are outside of technology to help data security, making sure that people are trained and not clicking on links and emails and things like that. The results of the poll are quite good. I mean, the yes to a degree, but I'm not sure how secure is quite high, over 50%. And remember that we just to toot my own horn here, we are offering some free consulting. So if there is anybody who's not sure about how secure they are, just give me a call after this and we'll give you some details and we can talk through it. The good thing is that people on this call know about data security, and that's something that's really quite crucial.
Yeah. Look, it absolutely is. And I think it's something that businesses are more understanding about how important it is to stay on top of it. As things move to the cloud and as HR becomes global, I think that data security becomes front and center. I wanted to ask something a little bit different here, just to throw it out to the panel. Because people often talk about the difficulties of offshoring and the cultural difficulties and et cetera, and cultural clashes and such. Is there anything that is better when you have someone offshore or in a remote location regarding business, as opposed to having that person sat next to you? I was just wondering if the panel could have a think about that.
I can jump in there, Anthony.
Sure.
For me, one thing that is better is being able to have people working on different time zones. Here in Australia, we have a few public holidays, and in the Philippines, they have a lot of public holidays, and in Vietnam, they have a different public holidays. So between the three areas, we can actually get coverage across the entire year. And that relates to time of the day as well. We've got US clients who, we can manage things overnight for them, which is good.
Yeah, I guess you can start to follow the sun, right?
Yeah, and to a degree, yeah.
That's been really advantageous for us, being able to extend our service coverage and running late, live chat up to after 10 o'clock at night is, we can do that really, really easily with the time zone differences between Australia and Philippines. It's
Yeah, that's completely awesome.
There is an advantage when you can standardize process. When you are, locally, everybody wants to have their own process. In each country, they want to have their own process. When you are outsourced and offshore, I think it's easier to standardize the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been my experience. I mean, not necessarily on the standardization of processes. I think from Lexmark's perspective as a global company, that's super critical. We're dealing, or at least the talent is dealing with small and medium businesses. it's just looking at processes. It's not even at the standardization of the processes. It's looking at processes. And the thing that's really is quite eye-opening for me is for even larger companies, you're like, well, how is this done? It's like, well, it's Fred does it, and that's how it's done. It's like, well, Fred's not here. Like, how do you know? And like, well, you don't.
Yeah.
And I found that when you get staff in the Philippines, it really provides some rigor on the processes, and that was a really interesting one for me.
Yeah, and you get to ask why as well with those processes, because sometimes Fred does it for Mary, and Mary doesn't actually need it anymore.
Yeah,
so
Mary, yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think that's a real positive, and not a common one that people realize.
Yeah, you can break down the myth of difficult process as well.
Yes.
Cut through that.
Cut through it, right? It really does. So even in things like software development, right? So I remember having a conversation with the CTO, and he's like, "Yeah, I mean, I never have remote staff because I want to be able just to turn my head and say something." And I was like, "Man, but that doesn't get recorded. That there's no trail of that. Whereas in an offshore development cycle, there is that trail."
And that's also one of the things that makes software developers get frustrated and leave.
What's that? Well, no trail.
When the founder turns to you and says, "Hey, can I have this new feature?"
Yeah, the distractions. No, you're absolutely right. Versus putting it into some sort of process and thinking about that feature for more than a 30-second idea.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we've had. I mean, my biggest team was a large group of .NET developers, and that was a fantastic rollout. Because they had it in place, they had their processes down, they had their team leads for the different sections in Australia, all talking to their teams in the Philippines. It was a great rollout, an example of what can be achieved. All right, cool. So, I mean, we talked about different things. Mike, if you've got something you want to.
Well, we would encourage anyone on the call to put a question into the Q&A section if you want the panelists to address those. The Q&A button is just down the bottom of Zoom, and you can put it in there. One of the things that obviously 2020 has been around is working remotely and working from home, and just to bring in another poll here to see where people are at. Have you returned to the office? And it'd be good to go around the panelists and find out whether their teams have gone back to the office yet. We continually work remotely and in the office. Our Vietnam team has been back in the office for a very long time, and here on the Gold Coast, we're fairly relaxed in terms of lockdowns, but I know that elsewhere in the world it's been very, very harsh. And Anthony, you've been part of that, haven't you?
Well, look, I have. Our teams. I mean, personally, myself, I've in Australia at the moment, and unable to get back to the Philippines, and looking forward to being able to return. So I've been stuck in home, and I was stuck in the hot zone in the northern beaches. So we had an outbreak. So we were under a very strict lockdown for many, many weeks, and have just got out of that. Our team in the Philippines are slowly coming back to the office, which is great. KMC have always been there for us. So thanks, Mr. Mcculloch, for that. A little bit of a plug for KMC. And the teams are starting to get back there, and it's just the other infrastructure around it that needs to get into place to get us fully back there, things like the transport and stuff like that. But that's slowly coming, and the vaccine will eventually get rolled out, and things will begin to normalize. I've been really proud of the team, how resilient they are, how they've been able to roll. And it's one thing I'd love to talk to the panelists to get into the nitty gritty of this horrid 2020. What was it like? I mean, Mr. Mcculloch, I mean, what for you? I mean, I know you've been open the whole time, but you've got other clients that may have wanted their teams remotely. Like, what was it like?
Yeah, let me just tell you that talking to our clients about renewals was not a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They weren't too happy to pay for an office that they weren't going to use, at least for some time. Some of our bigger clients were quite loyal and said, we want an office. We'll be back. We'll have at least a few guys in there every day. Some put one of their employees every other seat, every 2 seats. So, every client had a different, potentially global policy that they had to adhere to,
Yeah.
which made it pretty interesting. We're starting to see a lot more of our clients actually come back. So they would have, their leases would have expired with us, their memberships would have expired with us
Yeah.
in, say, June or July. You know what? First of the year, like, we got to at least have a couple of, we got to have like a private office again. You guys' internet was, rock solid, and people want to get stuff done, and they want to see each other again. They want to collaborate. And so that makes us feel pretty good. The first couple of weeks of this year has been really, really good for us, and we're excited to see people back in our offices. Roughly about 15% of the people physically in our offices right now, compared to about 85%, say, last March. So it's climbing. It's climbing.
Yeah, we've seen that too. I mean, our clients, it was a rough and tumble year for sure. The clients that we had at KMC, understood that they needed to support the infrastructure, right? Even if the team weren't there, if they weren't paying for those seats, and that service wouldn't be available in the future when things get back to normal. And I was so happy to see that understanding that businesses need to support the outsourcing to the outsourcers, right? Even during difficult times. Eleanor, how was it at Lexmark?
In our case, we're still working from home. I think that we as a company, we are ready. Our buildings are totally ready to receive the people. We only are, we have like 100 people going to the office right now.
Yeah.
Out of 1,600. So it's
Wow.
a very, very small group. And our first priority is our employee safety. So we are not going to push anybody to go back to the office if they don't feel comfortable doing that. If they feel, they can go, because the buildings are ready. And our crisis management team, security team, facility, everybody, human resources is going very often, very, very often to the office. But the people are, talking about, when is the vaccine going to be ready? Are we going to have the vaccine? Is the vaccine going to be mandatory?
Right, good question.
That happening very, very soon.
Yeah, some difficult hurdles there, isn't there? Will the vaccine be mandatory if you want to go back into the office?
Exactly.
Can you do that?
Going to be mandatory or not? Which vaccine are we going to have in the Philippines? I don't know. I think that our mayor was saying that the people can choose the type of vaccine that they want. I don't know if you saw that. Article about.
Yeah, I did, and that potentially that could be funded through the companies if they want to choose a different vaccine.
Probably.
Very interesting topic.
Interesting results on the poll, in that people are going back little by little, but there's actually a relatively high percentage of people saying no, and it's unlikely that they'll go back to the office. So I mean, I think that there are a few companies embracing the remote work lifestyle.
Now, there's probably one option that was not on that poll that maybe could have been considered, is a hybrid model, and that's what we're actually looking at going forward. Our team in Philippines really thrived in the work from home environment, and they exceeded our expectations of what was possible with remote working. And they love it. They don't have to deal with public transport. They don't have the long commute times. They have more time with their family. We've had a massive reduction in absenteeism and lots of productivity and a happy team. What we've lost is the group dynamic part of it, where the teams get to spend time in the collaboration that can happen when they're all together, and being able to train and learn from each other. That's what we're missing. So we're going to transition through this year to some hybrid model where we will be bringing our teams into the office for certain periods of time, and making sure we're going to get the benefits of both sides of it, if possible.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's difficult for us. When we evaluate 2020, we can see the result. The operational results are so good. All our KPIs are green, and we have excellent result with the people working from home. So but I think we are working on a mixed possibility. Some days working from home and some days working in the office, and that's what we will be documenting.
I think that's about right. I think that is truly probably the future of work, particularly in the Philippines, where you mentioned some of the infrastructure challenges of long commute times and higher productivity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think you need to be in the office Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. anymore. For probably none of us do office hours 9 to 6 either. So it's kind of probably not applicable to the teams as much anymore.
Yeah, and I think the key there is flexibility. I think that hybrid model is what it's going to be like. I think the office spaces are still going to be crucial, even more so. So I'm thinking, KMC there in the IT park and that fantastic space you have there with the new office, I think on the 17th level, if I remember correctly. They're going to be so important for that collab stuff. And then it's just going to be flexibility of when you want to come in and when you don't. For someone like me that thrives around people, I'll always want to be in the office. But I think it's going to be more about businesses allowing choice there based on performance. It was because I remember somewhere back in the day, I don't know who it was a large IT service provider that got rid of all their offices. I think it was in the late 90s, and it just didn't work because there was a real drop.
I believe it was Yahoo.
Yahoo, yeah.
And
right.
Melissa Meyer took on, she brought everybody back to the office.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
there's, so there are mixed results, and I think it's based on performance. I mean, I've been so happy as well at the resilience and flexibility of staff at Talent. We had one guy team viewing into a computer so that he could continue with his CAD drawings. I didn't even think that was possible, but it worked. He's back in now, but it's amazing how people find a way.
Anthony, this leads to a question that's been asked on the Q&A panel, and I'll put this. I mean, this has probably already been covered to a degree, but 2021 forecasts see the office more of a collaboration hub than a cubicle to work from. What transformative approaches are you taking in your companies to make this a reality?
It's a great question. Who wants to go first? I mean, Alex, you were talking about collab. Are we going to put you in the hot seat?
Maybe I can just quickly,
or Michael,
mention that roughly 40% of our space is actually collaboration spaces. So boardrooms, meeting rooms, training, pantries, or co-working areas. So yeah, Anthony, the 16th and 17th floor has a lot of breakout spaces and open space.
Yeah.
And
I noticed that there's a big difference between the
Gen 1
iteration to Gen 1 to Gen 2. Massive.
Gen 1 and Gen 5. Yeah. So
fascinating. Okay, cool.
Go ahead.
So we're going to have that hybrid model. It's not really that complex. We don't need a lot of collaboration space, but we need a space for people to come back to. So really, and also with the growth that we're going to continue to expect to have, we'll probably maintain our office as it is and not need to go into bigger spaces over time, but use that hub or use that office space as a hub. But we're going to need, obviously, to duplicate a certain amount of IT infrastructure to do that. So our team all has workstations at home. So we now need to refit that office that is currently empty, and so that people can have a workstation in both locations. Not for the entire team, but then that'll allow a group to be in the office and then go back, and we still have that secure environment when they're working from home. So that's a simple logistics thing that we need to do. But I think the main challenge is that we need to get our head around is what the frequency is, what percentage at home versus percentage in the office. We don't actually know the answer to that at the moment. We're going to experiment and we'll try a few things, see what works and what gels with the team and what they respond to. And then continue from there.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, we have a task force working on this already. Yeah,
wow, full task force.
Yeah, we have a team that is working on that because we have 3 buildings. One of them is already empty, and we are looking for a tenant for that building. And then we have the other 2 that one is used by the research and development team, and the one for the competence centers is a 23-floor building. So we have plenty of space to be creative and to see what are we going to do with all that space. But I think that one of my managers is on the call, and probably she's the one asking that question.
You'll have to have a follow-up after the call.
I can't remember if you've been to our HQ in Manila, but we have a sky deck. So we've got that open air, about 200 square meter deck. And every Friday we bring the sales team in, for an outdoor social gathering.
Cool.
Which has been pretty special, because just the stuff that's discussed that's not on a Teams call or a Zoom call, is all the difference. I think we're oftentimes kind of playing Tetris with our clients and seeing where we can move them around, and that those conversations much more informal in that setting has been really helpful.
Yeah, and I think those unplanned interactions are so critical. There's water cooler interactions, those collab space where people just get together and have those offline chats. The chats that weren't planned, I think are sort of the glue that makes businesses really, really work well.
Anthony, we've got around 5 minutes left in this. There's one more question
already?
We've been talking for an hour nearly.
No.
One more question that's come up, and this is the title of this webinar, is to be bold in 2021. So what is your perspective on how to be more bold in 2021? Eleanor, I'd probably like to start from your end, because you've been Lexmark is one of the biggest in the industry, so it'd be nice to see how you're planning to be bold.
Fortunately, the Filipinos are very bold and they have very good ideas. I think that 2021 is going to be kind of a mixed year. Probably the first part of the year we are going to be working from home, and then we will be back to not to normal, but to this hybrid model. But I think that there are things that we have to be very focused. One is people. One thing that we learned in 2020 with this working from home is that we can really trust our team. Developing trust is not an easy task. And I think that we were pushed for the pandemic to do it. No options. We didn't have any options. Everybody have to go and work from home. Were we ready? 100%? No, we were not. But we were one of the first companies that say, everybody's working from home starting March 17. So this March 17, we will be celebrating our first year working from home. And we did it. It was with no issues. No, we have issues. We have, internet connection was one of the biggest issues. Getting better, believe it or not, is getting better. The internet connection is getting better there in Cebu. But how can we be bold? I think that we have to trust the people and we have to allow them to be more creative. I think we have to listen, open to listen to new ideas, to new way to do business, to execute the process. I think we have to give the opportunity to the people to tell us how can we be more productive in this new environment.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Michael, who's next on that one?
Michael, let's go with Michael.
Mr. Mcculloch.
Oh, sure. So I guess some of the cool things that we get to see by working with so many different clients is some of the benefits that they want to start offering to their employees who do come into the office, whether it's dinner or just much bigger social spaces and food and beverage options. So other companies, we help their kind of dreams come true, and our clients are also dreaming big right now. Some want to be in the office as early as now. Some will probably wait till Q3 before they start coming back in a big way. We've also helped. We purchased roughly 4,000 vaccines on behalf of our members, right. And we'll probably be doing another round of those if more and more of our clients want help procuring that for their employees.
Awesome.
Alex, how about you?
I think in terms of the how to be bold, I think there's a lot of cues for what went on in 2020. It really forced us to be inventive and to explore doing things in a different way. I don't think we've seen as rapid an embracing of a digital first approach in the world ever, right? You know, all those paper processes that needed to all of a sudden become an online process for customers, for everyone. And I think that the trick is to try and take some of that mentality, that thinking about, okay, if what happens if we just do it? I think that's the biggest impediment to change is hesitation and
Oh, wow.
and perceiving the risks as being great. And I think we need to have a much stronger view on what the rewards are versus the risk in the risk reward equation, and just try it. Start small. Doesn't have to be a silver bullet, or it doesn't have to be a solution that fixes everything, but does it take you in the direction you want to go? And if you are doing tests and are trying things, then make sure you put the right kind of effort and focus on it so that you're going to get the best result from it. And I think you'll prove to yourself that things can work and you can do some really interesting stuff. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay. First of all, thank you everyone for attending, and a special thank you to all of the panelists. We remember that at the end of this webinar, you'll get a survey to fill out, and I'd really love you to give us some honest feedback. Also remember that Anthony has 30% off for the first 2 months with Talent Asia. TeamScale will give an hour of free consulting. So if you want to talk about your IT or your security, give us let us know. Also, Anthony, there is another one that you wanted to mention.
I did. I just want to thank Motive for letting me come in and sit in their offices. So Motive are offering a 5-day free pass. This is really only for people that are in Sydney. So to get in touch with them, it's Motive Co-working. And I would also like to personally thank all of the panelists for coming on. I can't believe the hour is gone already. That is just too fast, but I mean, we're all busy people, so an hour is a long chunk out of everyone's day. It was a great talk. It was really interesting to hear all your different perspectives, and to closing it up, being bold for me in 2021 is holding my head up high in what we do. I think what our industry is a fantastic industry that helps strengthen companies around the world. And one thing that was wonderful for me to see was when I first started at KMC, I was in a single desk, and there was an IT support company who were next to us, and I was having a look, and they had rapid growth. And I went to their website, and it's got in very large bold letters, customer support proudly from the Philippines, and IT support. And I really liked that. So there was no hiding what they do. They're very proud of their Philippines IT support. And that's going to be my being bold for 2021. So, and a big thanks to everyone that's come along and listened today as well. Thank you all.
Yeah, and thanks for the questions and the polls and everyone. And had a great time. Thanks, everyone.
I'll see you later. Thanks, everyone, for your time. And
thank you.
Here's to a much better 2021.
Thanks.
Thanks, Alma. Bye-bye.